Hi, everyone. My name is Brett Gorman. I'm the Director of Coach Education for US Rowing, and you are in our Learn to Row Deep Dive Workshop. This is a little bit different from what we've done. We had a lot of webinars over pandemic and during the winter. We've been doing a lot of webinars, and the feedback we've gotten is that people are a little bit zoomed out. They're a little bit tired of the one-way communication that a webinar offers. And we really want to make sure that we're interacting as much as possible. So this is meant to be a workshop. We are going to do some breakouts and give you opportunities to ask specific questions to our panelists. The goal of this workshop is to learn from each other. We've picked 3 different clubs with different approaches, slightly different approaches to Learn to Row and why they run Learn to Row programs, how they run their Learn to Row programs. And our goal is that, you get a couple tidbits and maybe some ideas for how to run a successful Learn to Row program, both a Learn to Row day or a full-fledged Learn to Row program at your club. And that's our goal for today. We're going to be here for maybe just over an hour. We have about an hour of planned content. If we go over that, we do have some flexibility with that. We're going to do about 40 minutes of presenting, and then we'll have 15 minutes for breakouts for individual questions. Okay, for that. Before I go further, I want to introduce our full-time US Rowing employees that are on this call with me that have been working on this webinar. It was definitely a joint effort across multiple departments. And so first I want to start with Jenny Trays, who is our Chief of Community Engagement. Jenny, do you want to say hi?
Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here. Excited to learn more about your clubs and share some thoughts and best practices. Appreciate your time.
Next, we have Thomas Rooks, who is our Associate Safety Officer here at US Rowing. Tom, do you want to say hi?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. Thanks for getting on this call.
Yeah, appreciate it. And Tom, at the end, Tom will be going over some fun safety tips for things you want to keep in mind for Learn to Row. And lastly, I wanted to introduce Flavia DeLucas, who works with me in Coach Education, and she'll be monitoring the chat and also monitoring one of our breakout groups. Hi, Flavia.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Okay, great. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that everyone can see what we're working with. Just a couple notes. So this is a meeting, so we can see you, which is great. And we want it to be interactive. So actually, first, we're going to start with just a couple polls. So Jenny, if you could launch that first poll about why you came today. Why did people want to come to this workshop? Did it go, Jenny? Okay, great. Sorry, it doesn't show up on mine. So just want to make sure. Yeah, just get an idea. And if it's not one of these reasons, maybe we should have included an other, but you can go ahead and click that. I just love rowing in general, and that's why I'm here. And we're going to try to keep these pretty quick. So we'll give out another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and close it, Jenny. And share the results so we can see what brought people here today. Did it show? So it's not showing up for me, Jenny. Are the results showing up?
Yes, they are. Can everyone see them?
Okay, good. That's okay. I don't know why I can't see them.
It looks like we had 11% say general interest in the topic, 77% say I run or help run Learn to Row for my organization, 9% say my club is running a new Learn to Row program, and 18% say I love all topics on rowing.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, great. And let's go ahead and launch that second one, getting a little more nitty gritty, like what about Learn to Row? Are you interested in hearing specific information about, so we make sure maybe we spend a little more time on those areas. But we have a plan. We're kind of doing an overall, but let's go ahead and launch that second one so you can get a little data on that. And then after you answer that poll, everyone, go ahead and let's also get the chat going with, where are people tuning in from today? Where that's the fun thing about Zoom, is we can get people from all over the place. So would love to know where people also, I'm here in Boulder, Colorado, which is not necessarily a rowing hub, but we do have some, but yeah, would love to know where people are coming from. Washington, Sarasota. Okay, cool. Bear Island. Nice. Huntsville, Alabama. I have a lot of family on my husband's side in Huntsville. Lots. Great. Pocock. Yep. Awesome. Okay, great. All right, we'll go ahead and keep that going. We'll keep letting people in, but let's get to our content. Or actually, sorry, Jenny, close the poll. Let's close the poll. Let us know what the results are.
So it looks like coming in hot with 46%. People are interested in creating an ideal format for a successful Learn to Row program. So that's great. We're going to get into
We're
a
gonna
few.
really get into that one. Awesome.
23% said reaching new groups of people for Learn to Row and inclusion. 15% successful marketing of a Learn to Row program. 10% said integrating Learn to Row into our club and existing programs and moving people from Learn to Row into other programs.
Membership. Yep.
And then finally, 5% at running a safe Learn to Row program, of
Which
course.
I'm sure we're all okay. I debated whether to put that in because I'm sure we all want that. You know, that's always something that we come to first is safety. But yeah, great. All right. Well, without further ado, let's get going and we'll introduce the people you really want to hear from, the people that are boots on the ground and are running successful Learn to Row programs. So if I get a thumbs up when the title slide shows up for everyone that we're seeing it, great. Thank you everyone for participating. All right, we've already done our intro.
Brett, we actually can see your notes.
You can see my notes. You know what? I don't need them anymore because it was mostly just the intro slide. So are they gone now?
You stopped sharing now.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry, everyone. You would think after, hundreds of webinars that we would have this down pat, but apparently not. I think I probably have my desktop. Let's try this. All right. How's that look, Jenny? Let me know.
Looking good. Great.
Okay, great. All right, here we go. So yeah, we're gonna, like I mentioned, we have brought together 3 wonderful organizations with slightly different approaches to Learn to Row. We have Chris Callahan and Pat Hurley coming to us from San Diego Rowing Club. We're gonna get started with them. Then we're gonna move on to Wilka Crew from New Orleans Rowing Club. And then we're gonna be talking with GMS Rowing Center's Linda Linden to talk about how they run their Learn to Row, and I believe a little bit more deep dive into the structure on the template that they use for that. But I think without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and kick it over to San Diego. So Chris and Pat, how are you guys doing today?
Oh, good.
Good.
So thanks for coming. Want to talk a little bit, first introduce the club. We've been around since 1888, so really long time. It was a men's club until the 80s, and they did all sports back in the days. We've had a couple location transitions from the San Diego Bay to Mission Bay, and we're now kind of set up on an acre. We got 4 bays. UCSD and USD have a bay and a fenced area on the site. So we've got 6 bays, a party room, and some fenced area on site. So it's a fairly large facility. The women make up now 53% or 43% of the membership, which is really nice, between the juniors and the masters. I think at one point it was up to closer to 50%. But I started here in 2010. The adult membership at the time was 125. The juniors was 75. And then at the moment, we're around 350 adult members, and the juniors are around 130. So over 12 years, we have almost tripled the membership. Really helps financially to hire coaches, a boatman, not really staff because that's about me, but we have lots of coaches and a pretty well-run boathouse with a good board that supports the coaches and the growth and our purpose. The club does offer for the juniors, middle school and high school. The middle school is a little more recreational, kind of get them ready for high school racing. The high school team is racing and competitive. We're going to nationals in the men's 8, the women's 8, and the U17 4+. So that's really nice to be able to have a competitive high school program. We have a Learn to Row programs, whether they're different classes like Try It Days, which are usually free. We have weekend and weekday classes, which are 2 hours long and 4 sessions per class. And we have 2 classes to kind of get people up to speed on sculling. And then we'll have individual or small group lessons on the side with individual coaches. Brett, we lost, there we go. The club also offers a kind of a recreational, kind of self-organized rowing groups. We have a coach development program. So when they get done with sculling classes and they want to keep going while being coached, we have a program to offer them to continue being coached, both sweep and scull. We have our competitive programs for those that are, skilled enough to be able to start, training at the master's level, really, get after it. And we do race all over the country. This summer, we're going to go up to Canadian Masters and, see how we do up there. We started this last year a high performance program, kind of a pre-elite program, to give those that are on the West Coast an opportunity to keep training and go race at trials and see what they can do. So we have a lot of stuff going on, which is really nice. I mean, it's a busy boathouse. We have the colleges next door as well. They do summer camps as well. So there's really not a slow point of the time. We do have a party room, which we do rent out during the summertime for weddings. So that is helpful to bring in extra money to help fund rowing, because that's what we like to do. Okay, we could probably go to the next. So the goals of like the Learn to Row programs, for the most part, we want to give people a chance to learn and experience something new. I mean, that's what every rowing program wants to do. You want to grow, you want to, give the opportunity to, try and do something new, which is great. We want to increase the membership from these classes. So we want people to join. We have a membership-based program. So it's like a gym where people pay a monthly fee and they can come and take out club boats that they're qualified to take out. So we have our Moss singles, we have our Pinerts, we have our racing singles. So, they teach in the classes, in the Mosses, really teach the basics, be safe out on the water, the traffic pattern, basic skills and stuff like that. So once they can kind of pass through the classes and be certified, they can, jump out of the boat and get back into the boat. They can join the club and join the programs or kind of go row out on their own. We have the other programs as well, if they wanted to keep being coached in the development. So we have other programs that they can get into. We want to ID the athletes that can eventually move into, the competitive program. We've had some kids or some adults show up and, they pick it up really quick and they're like, oh, we're still young. They want to race. They want to do that stuff. So it's like, how do we progress them fast enough to, get them to race as soon as they're ready? We of course want to be a faster, more competitive program. We've won Masters Nationals points trophies a few times in the last few years. We travel, with 50 to 100 people, and plenty of people still at the boathouse that don't want to race, and that's perfectly fine. But we try to have a little bit of everything for everyone, and then help them do what they want to do. We do want to be a place for rowers of all levels. Experience. We have boats in all the weight ranges, all the classifications, the sizes. We're not going to bring any cox pairs into the boathouse. Like, that's just not a thing. I've rowed that too many times. It's no fun for anyone. It's supposed to be a fun sport, not the lead sled. So, but we have over the last 12 years gotten rid of the one size fits, the captain, to, we have a bunch of lightweight women's boats, from the singles, pairs, quads, 4s, and 8s, to the heavyweight boats, the super heavyweight boats for the 200 plus pound guys. So women's shoes in the women's boats, so that the men can't take them. Luckily we do have about 60 to 65 boats in the boathouse. So it's nice to be able to have the space so that you can have enough equipment for, everybody. Of course, we would like to have another bay or two so we could have more stuff to support more people, but we are pretty lucky with what we have so far. And then I think Pat's going to jump on the next two.
Yep. So in terms of what our Learn to Row programs actually look like, Chris has mentioned some of the different options that we have. We have single days, we have week-long camps, we have some weekend sessions. So we have a lot of flexibility in terms of what we offer. Some of our options are free. So typically, if we're doing something like a standalone Learn to Row day, or if we're doing like a week leading up into the juniors competitive season, oftentimes we'll do those without a fee. And typically those are just meant more as just like a way to increase our exposure, get more people involved, and get more people to try it out. A lot of our options do have a cost, and we try to keep the cost as low as we can. We have individual lessons that you can do kind of one-on-one with the coach. Our summer camps have a cost, and those tend to be a little bit more at identifying future athletes, people who can kind of work their way into a program, whether that's a competitive, recreational development. As Chris mentioned, we have kind of something for everybody. In terms of each, like what a session actually looks like, there'll be a little bit of flexibility depending on whether it's just a single session or a week. But typically what we'll do is we'll kind of show everyone around the boathouse, let them see the different boats, the different equipment. Like Chris mentioned, we have a pretty nice facility here, so people tend to kind of be pretty impressed by what we have here. Once we get everybody kind of checked in and get their stuff put away, we'll start off on the ergs. And really just kind of go over the basics of what we want to get done out on the water. Especially these days, ergs are popping up in gyms and CrossFit and stuff like that. So a lot of people, the last couple of years have had more exposure to the machines, but that also tends to mean that they've seen some very interesting rowing technique that maybe isn't exactly what we're going for out on the water. So we can kind of use that time to just say, hey, this might look or feel differently than what you're used to. We use the machines as a way to kind of practice what we do out on the water. And we just kind of go over some of the big hit points in terms of the different parts of the stroke, the general movement, and what they're going to be looking to do out on the water. Once we finish up with the ergs, we go out and we kind of talk about the boats. Again, depending on the kind of session that we're doing, like Chris said, sometimes if it's a smaller group, we'll have everybody out in kind of the beginner singles, where they can just kind of get a feel for their own boat. If we have a bigger group, then we'll get them out in typically in eights with some experienced volunteers filling out some of the seats. But either way, we let them kind of have a chance to go over the boats, go over the equipment, see what they're going to be dealing with. We'll hit on some of the important things that they'll need to know, particularly if they're going to be out in a single by themselves. Then they need to make sure that they've got everything set up properly and know how everything works. We'll go over a little bit more of kind of what has worked and what hasn't worked with us in the next slide. But once we go over the equipment, we'll get everyone out on the water. And again, if they're in a single, they can kind of go around and kind of figure it out for themselves a little bit. We'll have a coach out on the water for sure, making sure everybody's being safe and giving some feedback. But if they're out in the bigger boats, then there's always the challenge of figuring out how do I do what I do, and then also get it going with everybody else. But once we get a little bit of time out on the water, we come back, have a chance to ask some questions, make sure we have a chance to kind of go over what their options are moving forward if they're interested in taking the next step, which Chris did a nice job of kind of laying out everything that we have here. And the one thing that I think is we wouldn't be able to do any of our Learn to Row stuff without all the help that we get from volunteers from our membership. Typically, if we're doing like an adult Learn to Row class, then we'll get adult members to help out. And if we're doing one for juniors, we'll have some of our junior athletes come down and help out. Typically here in San Diego, we found that our members are more than happy to come down and pitch in and kind of help get the next generation of rowers out on the water. I personally think it's because they've been yelled at by coaches so often. It's nice for them to kind of turn the table and be the ones in charge for once. But with us, we try to overdo it with the number of volunteers that we have. We've always found that more is better. We'd rather have extra people standing around, but they just kind of make everything a lot easier just in terms of getting people corralled and moving equipment and getting things set up. So for us, we found that the more volunteer involvement we can have, the better. And we've been pretty lucky that we haven't had much trouble getting people signed up for that.
Patrick, while I click to the next slide, we did have a question about, do you have a set safety ratio for on the water for coach to athlete ratio for Learn to Row?
Typically, if we're going to have a bigger group where we're going out in like the bigger boats in the eights, we'll try to keep it to like one coach per boat. And typically those bigger boats will have at least a few of our experienced volunteers in the boat as well. So in an eight, you're probably looking at maybe 5 or at most 6 new rowers. If we got people out in singles, it's kind of nice. There's like a little cove right in front of our boathouse where it's a little bit more protected and it's kind of a contained area. So if we're going out in singles, the first couple of times we keep everybody in that cove, and we'll have launches out in the water. And typically, if we're going to have more than like 4 or 5 singles out on the water, we'll try to get at least one coach for 4 or 5 boats. So yeah.
Cool.
This one, we could have done several slides with the mistakes that we've made over the years. But I think the biggest thing for us is that we haven't been afraid of making mistakes, and we haven't been afraid of trying to learn from them. I think one of the things that we kind of learned early on is that, obviously everyone here knows that rowing is a very technical sport. The equipment's very technical. There's a lot that goes into it. And it's very, very easy to overload new people on the first day with stuff that is important, but maybe isn't really going to come up on their first time out on the water. And so, you can kind of see in the eyes of the group after a while, they just kind of start to glaze over and words are going in one ear or the other. So we've definitely kind of had times where we've overloaded and we've overdone it with the information that we've been given out. And even small things like, obviously it's important for new rowers to know how to handle the equipment and carry boats down to the water and get everything loaded up. But if you're talking about a single session where these people only have 2 hours, you could easily spend, half an hour just moving stuff around, and then that kind of cuts into their time where they're actually out on the water taking strokes. So, you can talk about how things are important, and then we like to have the volunteers really help out and kind of accelerate that process a little bit so that we can spend a little bit more time on the water. And then if people are going to continue, or if they kind of funnel into one of our other programs or a more in-depth learn to row session, then we can spend a little bit more time on it. We've definitely had times where we haven't had enough help, where we're spread a little bit thin. And so if you're taking out 8s with new people in them, there's a big difference between a boat with 1 experienced rower and a boat with 2. And so it can just kind of make the experience a lot better for everybody. So as I mentioned, we tend to err on the side of having too many volunteers, and making sure that we can give everybody a good experience. And then I think the biggest thing that we learned is that, it's great to have like a plan and a general structure and a general schedule. But we found that it almost immediately always goes right out the window. And if you're like rushing around trying to make sure like, hey, we said at 10:15 we're getting hands on the boat and you're not quite ready for it, then, you miss some things. And I think the biggest thing is just we kind of learned that we have to move with the speed of the group that we have, right? And there are going to be times where the group's moving a little bit faster. And sometimes there's a group that needs a little bit more time with different things. So just kind of having some flexibility built in with the schedule and working with that has been very important for us. Mm-hmm. In terms of things that have worked well for us, like we said, having a ton of volunteers has been huge. The structure seems to work pretty well for us, where we start with the basics on the machine, go to the equipment, go to the water, and then have a chance to kind of wrap things up. Chris touched on a lot of our options on what we have to do after that initial learn to row session. So I think our club has done a really good job of kind of having those next steps lined up, so that if people try it and they like it and they want to continue, there's something kind of immediately available for them to be able to continue. I think the one thing too is you want to make it fun. If the goal is to get people exposed to the sport and get people drawn into the pipeline, then you want to make sure it's a fun and kind of a laid back atmosphere where they can come down and actually enjoy learning about something new. So we try to keep it as light as we can. A lot of our volunteers do a really good job with that, and especially I coach the juniors, so on the junior side of things, it's a really good opportunity for us to kind of brag about those kids. Like Chris mentioned, we got a couple of boats heading to nationals next month, and so something like that is generally pretty impressive to some new kids who are trying it out, and so kind of gives them a little bit of a way to kind of see what could happen next and kind of what the future might look like for them. So
but yeah, at the end of the tip, we need to kind of move on. So if you just want to do some final thoughts.
Yep. And I think just to kind of wrap it up, the biggest administrative thing that we've found is that, if you're responsive to emails, phone calls, if you can kind of spread the word, then generally people are happy to kind of show up and try something new. So I think that's just about it for us.
Okay, great. And like, I am loving like the amount of engagement, like the chat's going nuts. Like, I don't know if you can hear my like chat going dee, 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 dee. So remember, we are going to, go to breakouts where people can choose, who they want to go with to ask, more specific questions. And we can also at the end, add them in. So if I haven't gotten to your question in the chat with this grouping, don't worry, I'm sure we can get there. Well, thank you very much. Very much appreciate your time. We'll see you guys in the small group. And next we're going to go to New Orleans. We're going to go to Will. Assuming I can get the slide to click over. Great. Will, welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So in New Orleans, we are a club that was first founded in 1987, but really we kind of think of our genesis in 2015 when we really started expansion from there. Prior to that, it had just been about 4 friends who were their own club and they just did their own thing. But since then, we've really grown. We started offering junior programs along with what our adults did. And so now we're up close to almost 100 members in total on any given year as people come through the program. We're also the only non-collegiate program in Louisiana. So we really cater to everyone that we can for every different level. So we offer both junior and adult rowing. And at all levels, we are offering both competitive, recreational, and adaptive rowing, really trying to make sure that no matter what someone wants to be able to do on the water, we try to find a place that they can find success with us. And our Learn to Row is really handled either through our regular juniors programming, which kind of has a fall, spring cadence to it. We found that that's been the best way to get juniors through our program and really have them aligned and cohere together as a group. With adults, we run 4 to 5 classes a year. Those classes can be anything from 3 to 7 or 8 sessions, depending on what we want to do. And those classes usually are for us, after Mardi Gras up through basically the end of November. That is something that we have to contend with a lot, is that Mardi Gras really throws a big holiday into our early spring schedule. And so that provides some interesting scheduling challenges for us. So most of our new people classes don't start until sometime in March. We can go to the next slide. So while that's getting a second to load, so half of our adult membership and really all of our junior membership is new to rowing. So they all come through some level of Learn to Row here for the most part. We do have some people who rowed in college that have joined the club as an adults later on, but for the most part, a lot of people are learning the sport with us. We also row on a very visible and beautiful waterway here in our city. And so part of what we're doing is helping actually maintain the fact that rowing has been on that water in one way, shape, or form since 1835. It's a very protected piece of water, which allows us really to kind of have free reign to do what we want. We're the only entity that's allowed to have a motorized boat on our bayou. And that really makes sure that we have all the space that we want to get done whatever we need. One of our biggest goals, though, with Learn to Row is really growing the program. In 2015, kind of the 2 of the people who took it on to make the program what it is today, frankly, just wanted to go fast, and they want to be in more boats, and you can't row by yourself in an 8. So you need more people to join your club to row in an 8. And we wanted to go out there and find all those different people who wanted to either row fast with us or just be out on the water, just that aesthetic of being out there and seeing people out drives additional membership. And that membership drives support. New Learn to Row members are either connected in the community in different ways, which is very resourceful for us, or are willing to help donate and fund things when we want to buy new boats or new equipment. And it's really, really important that those people feel a connection to the program, because that then leads to new programming, which is always our goal, is finding out what can we do next with our club. But also rowing is fun. So make sure that people are having fun with everything that they're doing. And we'll talk about why we try to make it fun for everyone when they come here. And the last thing is coach development. Learn to Row is actually a really great chance for coaches to develop, to put them in, I would say, a lower stress environment than maybe coaching a team or of rowers who have an expectation about how a competitive practice might go. It's a chance to hone some of your different skills. It's also a chance to coach the coach. So I can go out there and I can actually just watch and observe how people are talking to our new rowers and help provide kind of like that overhead view of what works, what doesn't work. And we can talk about that with our coaches after classes are done and really come to agreement about like, what do we want to do next, either with that class or with future classes. So we can go to the next slide, Brett.
Yeah, sorry, there's a delay. I'm trying to anticipate.
It's all good. So our facility, again, we just have a very small dock. You can fit an 8 on it, and that's about it. So we usually use a lot of it for dock rowing. We don't have ergs on site. So we kind of put people in a boat right away just to really get them familiar with it. We also stress that what they're going to be doing for the first, maybe their entire session, is not really about exercise. It is about learning form. It's about learning technique. It's about learning what the sport is, and that exercise will come later. So we really want to set those expectations of what people are going to get out of it as soon as we can. So we'll spend, again, a lot of time on the dock. We do some land rowing with oars, just being able to have people hold and tactily feel, what is this going to be? What are the motions that they're going to be going through, and correct those as much as possible on the land before we get people in a boat. I think San Diego's absolutely right that volunteers and existing rowers are crucial. So having 1 or 2 extra people around, especially in that first or second session for us, really makes it easy for the coach to do things and have someone they can kind of point to and say, watch what this person is doing. And that person just knows what they have to do. They don't have to be told. You don't have to correct their body or reposition it to show what's going on. They can both purposely make mistakes, but also purposely get things done the right way. We can go to the next slide.
There we go.
So for a lot of our structure, we've really found that about 7 sessions is the right number of times we need to interact with someone to bring them to a team practice recreationally. Our #1 goal is that they can get out on our water safely in a single and navigate themselves around. Once they can do that, we can take everything else from there in our regular team practices. So that is our #1 goal that we're doing for everyone, no matter what their own goals are. And we also want to make sure that it's affordable, but also that is something that can help sustain our membership. So, we try to come in around $25 for a session. So if you're doing like a 7-session set, that's going to be $175. And that allows us both to give coaches stipends and also, fund any equipment breaks that can sometimes happen with Learn to Row. It's also important to remember that everything is a first for someone. So bring them on, I think, as quickly as possible. A lot of people can get overwhelmed with a lot of information, but instead of like holding back from them all these little things, just diving in with, okay, this is what we're doing. This is what we're going to go through, and present as many topics as you can, and then give people time to ask questions. If people see other rowers doing it the right way, they tend to follow along pretty well. Also, a lot of our Learn to Row coaches are members who have probably done Learn to Row with us. So they went through this themselves. It's very fresh in their mind. Someone who, like myself, who started rowing 20 more years ago, it's been a long time since I first learned how to do it. So it's actually been really helpful to have coaches who are very new to the sport and are very close to that experience of Learn to Row. And then the last thing is we really try to find ways to put events that are at the end of our Learn to Row classes. So either we can make an event for that, or we'll try to say, what else is going on at the club? Do we have a home regatta? Do we have a banquet of some sort? Let's make sure that we try to align those events with the end of Learn to Row, just as an extra way to culturally bring people into the fold when they are done with classes. So our biggest lesson so far really has been that there is no perfect formula. Everyone kind of responds to situations a little bit differently. So our coaches all have the freedom just to change and modify the structure of what they're doing to suit their rowers' needs. The number one way that we do that is we always ask what brought someone there. Is it because they want to be a recreational rower? Is it because they want to learn to row and then they want to go back home and they just want to use an erg and they just want to experience what it's like out on the water? All of those different types of people are going to approach what we're doing at Learn to Row in a different way. And so we want to make sure that the coaches can respond to those needs as best as possible. We've also found it really helpful to send background reading or videos ahead of time, even something as simple as a 3-minute, this is how you get back in a boat, that someone can watch so they can see how easy it is in case they are going to flip. And then the last thing is, again, coach the coach. Make sure that you are talking to your coaches who are doing this. And if you're coaching this yourself, find someone else who can watch you and say, hey, you know, you talked about the different parts of an oar, but you left off one. So next time, let's make sure to cover that. That type of feedback can be really, really helpful. And a coach teaching new people how to row is never going to hear that from the new people. So having someone else there for a couple sessions every once in a while just to check in, not really be a part of it itself, but just observe, has been really helpful for us too.
Will had a quick question in the chat. What kind of background reading do you send out beforehand?
Sure. So we've sent out, and we've tried different things. Again, let's just see what works, kind of throw a lot of stuff at the wall and see what sticks. So we've sent out short, one-pagers on here's some technical terms that people might hear. So when they hear port, starboard, they kind of already have a sense of what that is if they aren't used to hearing those terms. You want to make sure that you also have, we'll include US rowing materials. If you really want to go deep, you can, because some people really do care about it. We've had some rowers who are really care about the physics of it. And it's like, well, great. I have an entire website that's about the physics of rowing. So if you really want to dive deep, go for it. And whatever we can do to find the connection that's going to help that person become a lifetime rower, that's what we're going for.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And we'll get into the breakouts. Maybe we get in the nitty gritty a little more, but thank you for your time. And next we're going to go to Linda. Linda, how are you doing today?
There I am.
There you are. There you are.
Okay. Hi, how are you doing? So I'm Linda from GMS Rowing Center. We're here in New Milford, and we were founded at this location in 2004. I've been a coach there since the beginning of time, and I'm the development coach. And the interesting thing is that we only have about 45 members, including kids and masters, but we do have quite a large Learn to Row program. And out of our rowers, we've had over 100 athletes that have made it onto the national team. What I would say about that is Gunter Boyder, who is the head coach and owner, is great at bringing people up to the next level. But it's my job to do the Learn to Row. So without Learn to Row, you can't make it to the next level. And we have devised a great program of how to conduct a Learn to Row day. The goal of our Learn to Row Day is to let the community know that we exist. And because a lot of people don't know that GMS is here, and a lot of people don't know that rowing is in our area. So every time we have a Learn to Row Day, we hear from people, oh, I didn't even know you were here. So that's our goal, to really give an opportunity in the community to have a free day to come and try something they've never tried. Because sometimes people are apprehensive to give a try with and pay money for something that they don't even understand. The other thing is, our goal is to increase our membership with our junior program and our master's program. And we do have a scholarship program, part of our diversity program. So letting people know that that's available as well. How we market our Learn to Row, I have a flyer that I use, and I think that was on my first page. Brett, if you could go back to the first slide, that would be great.
Sorry, I jumped the gun.
She did. She got ahead of me. So our flyer is there you see it's a free Learn to Row Day, and I post that on Facebook, and I use all the tag sale Facebook pages. We also send it out through the schools and through social services and the youth agency and the surrounding towns. Some of them will post it for us as well. So we use that flyer. We also have a sign that we have created that says, "Come give rowing a try," free, with the date and the time. And we stick those signs up around town and the surrounding towns. And we've had great success with the signs. They really capture people's attention and kind of let us know and kind of direct them to us. So that's been a really good thing. So those are the ways that we market. And we've had pretty across the board good success with the different ways that we market. Everyone we ask that comes, we want to know what's effective. So we'll ask them how they heard about us, and we kind of keep track of that. So we know that our effort is working. I have volunteers, and all my volunteers are rowers from our junior program and our master program. I have a couple of videos that we've created that show how to teach Learn to Row. So I have them watch that video before our Learn to Row Day. And we also have a team meeting before our Learn to Row Day. So they all understand how to work each station. So this is the thing that I do that's maybe different than other clubs, is we've created stations for our Learn to Row. So when people come, we've got them moving. They're not just standing in line waiting to get into a boat. Our first station is our registration station, where they fill out their information. There's a US Rowing waiver on one side, and then our waiver is on the other side, which gives them permission for us to use their photos. And I like to use photos in the, as you can see, in some of our flyers, and also to thank people for coming. The key thing is to make sure when they're filling out their registration form that the information is legible. If you can't read the email and the phone number, then it's not effective. So our registration people, and you can go to the next slide, Brett. So we have a registration table with volunteers there, and they are checking people in. We also have a little piece of paper that we give to everybody, and it has a number at the top, and it tells them which station to go to next. So from the registration, they'll go on to the erging station, and then they go on to the oar station, and then on to the dock. So our erging station gives everyone an opportunity to get on an erg and feel what it's like to use an erg. And we stress, hand placement on the handle, elbows out at the finish, and how to do the rowing stroke on the erg. From there, they move to the oar station. You can see our picture there of everybody out on the lawn, and we spread out the oars and go over how to hold a handle, how to square and feather a blade. Left hand is on top, hands close together. And we found that this is really an effective way so they know how to use an oar right before they get into the boat. We then have, and we're very fortunate, we have a Sea Line quad training boat. And Brett, I think that's on the next slide, that we can put 4 participants in the boat, and I can coach from the coxswain seat. There's my erging slide. So you can see how we line them all up and we let them try erging. So once we get them done with the oars, we're a little out of order here. That's our Sea Line.
I'm sorry, Linda. It's like there's a delay. So if I click too much, so which slide do you want to be on right now?
No problem. This is great.
Okay,
So after the oar station, they go to the dock master, and the dock master will direct them down to me, and we'll let 3 people down. And then they also will let me know how many people are waiting, so I can gauge how long I'm with people on the dock. And it's about 15 minutes that they're with me. And I use an experienced rower to demonstrate how to get in and out of the boat, how to use the oars. And then we assist them in getting in the boat. And we have some volunteers even holding the boat. Worst thing you want to do is let new people get into a boat and feel scared. And, they're not very stable. So we really want to make people have a positive experience. We push off the dock and we do a loop in the river, and they practice taking strokes, backing, rowing. And if someone's having a problem, I'll take time and stop with them and let them really feel like they understand what's happening. The last thing I want to do is have someone come back to the dock and not have a positive experience. Once they come back, I tell them about our programs and I send them to the registration desk. And I tell them, and at the registration desk, I have all of the forms that are coming for our upcoming season and with my business card, and they can pick that up. The day after my Learn to Row, I send out an email thanking them with an attachment of all the forms plus my phone number. So I'm following up, and I continue to send follow-up emails like, hey, another class is starting, because I have ongoing Learn to Row classes, and I also have private lessons that I offer. And in our junior program, we offer Learn to Row within our junior program every season. Some of the things that we've learned is make sure you have enough literature. If you don't have enough forms, we've actually run out. You don't want to run out. You always want to have enough. Also making sure that the forms are filled out so you can have that information. We've really been very successful in our days, and we get a lot of great feedback that everyone's had a lot of fun. So I hope this helps you understand a little bit about a different way to have structure. The one last thing I will say is it's nice to have people moving. So they're going from station to station. They're not standing around just waiting. So we keep them moving, and we can adjust the amount of time that are at each station based on the line. And that's been really helpful. The other thing, the dock master, I usually have another rower there that's kind of talking up rowing. And we found that that was a very helpful thing. Sometimes we have some of our kids that are getting ready to go to college, so they'll talk about what rowing has done for them. And I will also stress upon the participants that, oh, these are my kids. They just raced last weekend. They got a medal. These kids are going to nationals. So I let them all know like the success of the kids that are around them. So they're like, oh, that's really interesting. So that's the positive thing I would say, to make sure that you let people know that, you know, there's a lot of good things about giving rowing a try. So
Great.
thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. And like so many great things about, you know, how do you tie the Learn to Row into, you know, the rest of the club to make that connection. I know in San Diego, Chris and Pat were also talking about that, especially with, I know they just, you know, qualified several boats to regionals. That's great. To nationals. That's awesome. Well, thank you very much. Great. As promised, we do want to do some breakouts. So this is how it's going to work. We're going to have each of the 3 clubs, and they're labeled, in a room. When I open them, you will have the option of which one you want to go into. All right. And we're going to do 15 minutes in each. And then we'll come back and do some, you know, takeaways, and then maybe have a little bit of time for questions in the bigger group as well. We will lose Will after the breakouts, just FYI. So if you want to ask Will some specific questions, Will, can you go ahead and put your email in the chat though, so people can have that if they want to reach out to you after the fact, since I know we're going to lose you after the breakout. But one second, and I will just get those open. And you do have the ability, I believe, to pivot as well. So like if Will's group if a group finishes up and they want to go into another one, please feel free to go into that. Like I said, we're going to do 15 minutes, and Jenny, myself, and Flavia will be going into each of the rooms. Like I'll go with San Diego. Flavia is going to go with Will in New Orleans, and Jenny's going to go with Linda and GMS. And then Tom, you can go wherever you want, where your little heart desires. But we'll go ahead and get those started so you guys can ask some more specific questions of our wonderful experts. Here we go. All right. So I know everyone's probably disappointed that we didn't get to be in there for longer. We will, you know, continue to ask questions and answer questions throughout the rest. We just want to make sure we get through, you know, some of our final takeaways and make sure we touch on safety, and then we can come back to questions at the end. I'm sorry if you were mid-sentence. That was not intentional. It wouldn't let me hold them out. But Tom, are you ready to talk about safety for a couple minutes?
I am, absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Hi, everybody. Just wanted to cover a couple of things for safety. It can sometimes seem sort of cliched, but the best Learn to Row day is going to be the one where everybody feels like they had a safe and professional experience, right? And that's also likely to buy down one of your biggest risks with Learn to Row, is that people have a fear of getting in a boat, being strapped into some shoes, taking on a new thing. So let's talk about a couple of safety issues, and then again, you can always follow up with me in the chat. First off, a liability waiver. You need to make sure, and we have a paper format on the USRowing website of a waiver you can have if your club doesn't already have one, that basically acknowledges to them, yes, this is a sport, yes, this is a physical activity, yes, it's on the water, yes, there is risk. So The next one is swimming. If you have, they have to be able to verify that this is a person that knows how to swim. Now, this is going to be probably kind of different based on whether or not we're talking about National Learn to Row Day or about your Learn to Row program, which can be 6 weeks or 3 months or whatever that is. But the thing I'm just going to say is if you haven't verified that they can swim, they really should not be in a boat. And if they cannot swim and your club says that's okay for Learn to Row days or corporate events, then that's where a life jacket comes into play. It might be embarrassing to wear a life jacket, but it's a lot better than drowning. And overall, I just want to kind of reiterate that if people see that your club, your organization is committed to safety, you're going to likely to give them a more professional experience and get buy-in from them that this is a place where I want to be. This is a place that, I'm in good hands here. We covered the orientation, so I think that's a pretty good example. Doesn't need to be beaten up. I think the clubs did a good job there. Emergency plan, having a brief conversation with your participants about the weather, the parameters by which you row, and things of that nature. Even on a Learn to Row day, that can take 20 seconds. But again, it tells them what we're going to be doing, why we're going to be doing it, and what is our plan if something goes awry. If we have a person out of the vessel, this coaching boat will come pick you up, or whatever your, real basic emergency plan. If someone is hurt, here's where the first aid kit is, that kind of thing. If you have a defibrillator in your boathouse, just giving some version of a truncated emergency plan for a Learn to Row day, or getting that knowledge from your club's guidelines into your potential new members as part of their onboarding process. There were a lot of good questions earlier about what should we be teaching in a Learn to Row? What's the point? Well, I think you have to decide ahead of time, what do you want out of it? If you want a person that's ready to be a member of the club, it's really important that they kind of hear what your club's guidelines are as part of that onboarding learning process. So that when they do join the club, they don't do something that is unsafe or not know what the plan is should there be an event. Crew organization, you guys covered pretty well. The real basic way I would put that is, if you have a lot of excited volunteers and you have the equipment to do it, the more experienced people you put in with the least experienced people, the higher that ratio you drive up, the better the outcome is going to be that day anyway. As anyone who's coached knows, the less inexperienced people that are in a crew, the quicker the crew is going to pick up a concept just from following and repetition. So at the minimum, we want to make sure in the primary turning and setting the pace positions, we have experienced people. And that's really not just for the learning experience, but also just to safely get your boat back to the dock. I've had situations where at a club I coach where we put out a middle school quad that couldn't defeat the current. It was great that they all got a chance to learn to row, but we really should have had a more experienced crew lineup just so they could have gotten back to the dock without a tow. On water safety, again, think of this as a chance to instill how your club is going to do things. Remember, to Learn to Row situation, the boat's going to be going slower, we hope. They're not as likely to make as much progress or to be as quick to take commands. So for on the water safety, make sure you just have a basic plan of, hey, we're not going to try and do 3-part pause drills on day one, but they need to know what way enough means. They need to know to be silent while the coxswain is speaking, things of that nature. Have an on-water safety plan. And the other one is just use caution as you assess the conditions and weather. Remember, a Learn to Row day, especially at a Learn to Row day, they barely have to even touch the water to still have had a wonderful day. In most cases at a Learn to Row day, you're opening your boathouse up to a new community of people that haven't been around the sport, probably never even seen the boats. So if you're unsure as to whether or not the weather will tolerate a robust rowing experience, just err on the side of caution and have them have a wonderful, safe experience at your boathouse. If anybody has any questions for me, I can take them quickly. Otherwise, I know we're time constrained.
Thank you, Tom. And I just want, there's some stuff in the chat too about, when with USRowing requiring membership for the waiver. That is specific to if you want your Learn to Row covered under USRowing insurance. If you have independent insurance, if you have your own insurance through your club, that is not a requirement you have to follow through. I mean, we want to eliminate as many barriers for access to rowing as possible. It's insurance. It's about, if something happens and you want to be covered, that's why that's in the materials for that. But it's a great question to ask. So again, that's a really good question to ask with your board members and people who run your club on what are the insurance implications, what is particular to your club on what you need to do to make sure to keep people safe. One other thing that I want to ask you, Tom, was about the swimming and about that being a requirement.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So what, because, when that's something we've been talking about a lot, especially with diversity, equity, inclusion, how like that can be a barrier to entry for a lot of people. So if someone doesn't know how to swim, what is your recommendation? Life jacket? What are you recommending?
Right. So again, this is, and I'm sensing this theme a lot. If we're talking about National Learn to Row Day, the cure, if you're still going to let them get on the water, is to put a life jacket on them. And if you have people to Learn to Row Day showing hesitation or fear, most people will just be really excited to get a boat ride in your safety launch. Just to be out there is really enough if we're talking about a Learn to Row Day. If, on the other hand, we really are trying to have a boathouse that represents our community, I hope. If you're talking about your structured Learn to Row programs, you can make a lot of great inroads and buy down that risk, buy down that fear by creating a Learn to Swim program. There's several programs, if you look to your local pools, that have ways to help people with this. Really, we don't want to see people in a Learn to Row program out on the water taking the risk that they can't swim. It's not that we want to be exclusive. We want to be safe. So again, please look ahead of time at developing ways to do that. In the past, where I've coached, we've had people that weren't great swimmers, and we've actually done a program for a few weeks ahead of time because maybe they could barely tread water but not strong enough. Well, let's reach out to them and get them that opportunity. And that's something you can really capture through if you have a sign up form for a Learn to Row program. If you have a sign up form for your Learn to Row program, it says ask any questions or share with us your concerns. If you do that early enough, you can usually capture those people well enough in time where you can help them out. If nothing else, even if they don't become a great rower, what a great life skill.
Great. Thank you very much, Tom. Very much appreciate it. And we're getting some answers to the question. There's quite a few questions in the chat. And we're messaging membership just to get some more clarification on that. Jenny, do you want to go ahead and take the next couple slides?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we're supposed to wrap up in 1 minute, so I'll kind of run through these. These are kind of our Learn to Row key takeaways. You probably heard from each of our speakers that they had a goal in setting out to do their Learn to Row. Is it to provide a rowing experience to a new community that you're not currently serving? Is it to get competitive youth athletes or competitive masters athletes? Kind of know and share that goal with your whole membership before going into the day or to the program. Be organized. I think everyone kind of spoke to that, really training volunteers, making sure that it's clear what your participants will be doing throughout their experience. As Tom said, if people have a really safe and organized experience at your Learn to Row Day, they'll walk away feeling really good about it. Be inclusive. In the digital toolkit, which I'll share here again, there's a whole tip sheet on how to make your Learn to Row Day inclusive. So making it free, I saw that in the chat, which is amazing. Ensuring your boathouse and the culture there is ready for new members. It's friendly, it's respectful, it's inclusive. And there are a couple other ideas in that toolkit there. On the marketing front, developing partnerships. So depending on what your goal is, thinking creatively about who you can work with in your community to bring those people into your boathouse. So if you're targeting youth athletes, maybe partnering with a school or a religious institution, or if you're looking to bring in new masters rowers, maybe it's partnering with a brewery or a winery, and meeting the community where they are, whether they're, it's working best in your town to do flyers, you need to translate your materials in a different language, or you think that a big social media presence will be the way to meet your audience. And then whether you're trying to get more people with disabilities or more youth, depending on the target audience, make sure that you're using photos that represent who you want to serve. I've heard a couple stories recently of clubs borrowing photos even from other organizations because they don't yet have the population of the people they want to serve. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Brett. And then, of course, make it fun. So much of rowing is about your boat mates and the community. So build that community early on. I think, when Linda does the stations, it's kind of cool that they get to travel from station to station with the same people, and have people kind of working together. Involve current members for volunteers, an awesome leadership opportunity for young people within your organization. Of course, be safe. That should be the number one priority for everyone here, but not necessarily serious. You can be direct and safe, but also make it a really good time. And put people in the appropriate equipment and help them achieve achievable goals. So, for example, it might not make sense to throw someone who has never been on the water before and doesn't know how to swim into a single. They're not going to come back. They're not going to have a great experience. So really thinking critically about what equipment makes sense for everyone that you're teaching to learn to row. And then finally, and importantly, the transition and the retention into your club. Linda spoke to this, making sure that you're capturing names and emails. And then Will mentioned kind of, having a celebration or something outside of rowing around the time of your Learn to Row Day, so that people who are coming out for the first time can experience your club in a more social setting as well. And make sure that that next step is really clear before they're leaving your boathouse, whether you have a flyer or the date is set for something and they've already registered, making sure that that's clear before they hit the road. That is it from me.
Great, thank you so much. Jenny, I'm gonna go ahead and stop my share. Good. Awesome. So you might see, Flavia just put in a link to the end of webinar survey. So we would love your feedback, especially about future workshops we can run. We will definitely be following up, especially with some more information on the insurance piece on what's covered and what's not for the US Rowing liability insurance on, I know there are lots of people that run Learn to Rows that don't require their participants to become US Rowing members. And again, it comes down to insurance. It's not about US Rowing trying to get, free money out of people in the Learn to Rows that you all run. It's specific to the insurance piece. So we will be emailing out additional membership information for that, so that you guys have all of that in writing. And we've reached out to Jules Zane, our director of membership, to get that to us. He is currently traveling to Northwest Youth Regional. So I apologize that we don't have that readily available for you right now. Well, I think that we're going to go ahead and close it out there. We're already 4 minutes past our time. With all of these seminars, we always wish we had more time. Could it be 2 hours? But, I think that it's hard to get people to sign up for a 2-hour event. But please, for our speakers that are still on, if you could put your emails in the chat, if you're willing to take on additional questions for people, we can also field those questions through the US Rowing channels and point you in the direction. If anybody has questions about running, whether it's you're planning to do National Learn to Row Day or how you can better run programs within your organization, we want to help. We want to do more for our member organizations and all of our members out there. Thank you so much for coming. And I think I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and we'll close out there. But everyone, please enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the best of your Wednesday. And please take the surveys really quick. We really appreciate any feedback and any ideas for future workshops. So thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.